So I want to look real quick at tools of tone shaping. The first one people think of is EQ, or equalization. Now this is the first EQ I put in on my wife's lovely voice. Without it in the mix, it sounds kind of like this.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Which doesn't sound terrible, but when you go through this, there are certain frequencies that kind of offend the sound, and then it's muddied up in the low range, so you want to cut off that, and then I added a little bit of air.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Which on its own actually sounds pretty thin, but in the mix it sounds pretty good. So again, we'll bypass and unbypass it for comparison.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah.
And you can really hear it there. So that's called corrective subtractive EQ. Now another thing we do to shape tone is to use a wideband filter. So this is a plugin we just got at the Wave Summer Sale. Now this particular plugin is modeled after a hardware equalizer. That is, you get more extreme, either boosting or cutting, the band will get more narrow. So since these are all really tiny boosts and cuts, they're all very wide band filters. So we'll just listen with and without it real quick. So it's just some very subtle tone shaping, but it makes the entire sound a little bit better in a lot of ways. Each of these bands affects it differently in a different pleasing way. So another way we shape tone is with harmonic reinforcement and harmonic generation. We look up here at the strings. We have two different strings going. One of them is a staccato. And then on top of that, we have Bartok snaps to give it a little bit more attack and brightness. And added to those, I added in Waves Vitamin. So basically you can just dial in how much harmonic content you want to add, and then down here you can change the width of each of these bands. And then what I'm adding to the snaps looks like this. So we take those one at a time. Bypassed. So it really adds a lot of clarity to the sound with the snaps and without it. It almost sounds like it was recorded in a new space with a new mic. It's really quite a phenomenal plugin. And without it. With it. I've got that plugin throughout on various instruments. Now a third way that you tone shape, and this one is more to get that last 2% on top of everything else you're doing, is modeling vintage gear just for the little bit that it adds. So on our mix bus and throughout, we have a few vintage consoles. There are these 3 vintage consoles that have been modeled. This is the one that I like the best, and it's just really subtle. But again, it just adds a tiny bit of tone shaping on top, apart from all the things that it can do. I'm using this solely as a tone shaper. It just adds a little bit of classic console distortion to it. It's not the bad kind of distortion, or I guess it would be if you drove it too hard. So one final way that you can shape the tone of a mix is through a multiband compressor. Some DAWs don't come with multiband compressors. Now this is simply a compressor for 5 different bands of audio, and the reason it can shape the tone is because you can compress each band differently, which accentuates the ones you're not compressing. So the net effect of all these different plugins is very substantial on the sound, even though each individual plugin doesn't do a ton for the sound.